My name
My
is
name
Renata
is Alondra
Martinez, and this is the
Martinez,
story of
and
how I
I'm
learned that
about to
sometimes the
tell you
people
how
who
my
gave you
own
life are the
mother stole
same
my
ones who try
inheritance,
to erase it.
forged my signature, and tried to erase me from my grandfather's will, all while I was grieving at his funeral. But here's the thing they didn't count on. My grandfather knew exactly what they'd do, and he left me a roadmap to fight back. This is the story of how the quietest person in the room became the one nobody could silence. Before we start, drop a comment below. What time is it where you are, and have you ever had family betray you over money? Because trust me, this story might hit closer to home than you think. I pulled up to Abuelo Salvador's house on a Tuesday evening in late May, the Texas sun hanging low and golden over the Spanish-style roof tiles. The gravel driveway crunched under my tires the same way it had every Sunday when I'd visit him for our standing dinner date. Just him, me, and whatever he'd decided to experiment with in the kitchen that week. Usually tamales, sometimes disaster, always love. But he wouldn't be waiting on the porch this time. He'd been gone 2 weeks now, and the silence felt heavier than the humidity pressing against my car windows. I sat there for a moment, engine off, hands still gripping the steering wheel. The honeysuckle he'd planted along the fence line was blooming wild and sweet, the way it always did this time of year. He used to say those vines were like me, quiet, unassuming, but impossible to kill. I wish I'd understood what he meant back then. The house looked exactly the same from the outside. Cream stucco walls, terracotta roof, that ridiculous ceramic frog planter by the front steps that he refused to throw away even after it cracked in half. Character, he'd say, patting its chipped head. Everything worth keeping has a little damage. God, I missed him. I grabbed my purse and the box of his favorite pan dulce I'd picked up from the panaderia, a habit I couldn't break yet, and stepped out into the warm evening air. Cicadas were already starting their nightly symphony. Everything felt normal. That should have been my first warning. I walked up the stone pathway, noticing the garden beds were freshly weeded. That was weird. Abuelo had been in hospice for 3 weeks before he passed, and I'd been too destroyed to think about yard work. Mom certainly wouldn't have done it. Serena Martinez didn't do manual labor. She hired people for that. Then I saw it. The mailbox. The old brass nameplate that had read Martinez, Salvador, and Rosa for 40 years. Rosa was my grandmother, who'd passed when I was 6, had been removed. In its place, a shiny new plate. Thompson Family Residence. I stopped walking. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step in the dark. Thompson? Who the hell were the Thompsons? My hands were shaking as I opened the mailbox. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe it was just mail for the previous owners of another house. Maybe nothing. Just a grocery store flyer and a Pottery Barn catalog addressed to current resident. I looked back at the nameplate, my reflection distorted in its polished surface. This wasn't a mistake. The spare key was still under the ceramic frog, right where Abuelo always kept it. Security through obscurity, mija, he'd joke. Nobody looks under the ugly frog. I unlocked the front door with trembling fingers. The smell hit me first, and it was wrong. Not the familiar scent of old books, wood polish, and the faint ghost of his pipe tobacco. Instead, synthetic lavender, lemon pledge, and that sterile, chemical-clean smell of a house being staged for sale. I stepped inside and felt my heart crack clean in half. Boxes. Everywhere. Stacked 3 high along the living room walls, each one labeled in neat handwriting I didn't recognize. Living room decor, donate. Kitchen, estate sale. Books, salvage or trash. Salvador's clothing, Goodwill. And there, shoved against the far wall, one box that made my vision blur. Alondra's stuff. Sort later. Sort later. Like my entire childhood was an afterthought. I walked through the house in a daze, my shoes too loud on the hardwood floors. The grandfather clock still ticked in the corner. Abuelo had wound that thing religiously every Sunday morning. But the photos that used to crowd the mantel were gone. The bookshelf he'd built by hand, where he kept his collection of Chicano literature and art books, was empty except for packing paper. Someone had taken down his paintings. The Diego Rivera sketch that used to hang over the fireplace, the one he'd bought at an estate sale in Santa Fe and told me stories about for hours, was gone. In its place, a nail hole and a rectangular shadow on the wall where the sun hadn't faded the paint. I felt sick. I made my way down the hallway to my old bedroom, the one I'd stayed in every summer as a kid. The door was open. Inside, nothing. The bed was stripped. The closet held 2 sad boxes labeled Miss C, Donate or Dispose. They'd erased me. I was still standing there, trying to process the hollowed-out feeling in my chest, when I heard the voice behind me. "Oh, Alondra, you're here early." I turned around slowly. Isabella stood in the hallway, my cousin, all 26 years of her dressed in athleisure that cost more than my monthly rent. Her hair was in a perfect high ponytail, her skin glowing with whatever $200 serum she was promoting on Instagram that week. She looked like she'd just finished a Pilates class in someone else's house, which apparently she had. "Early for what?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. She smiled, not warm, not apologetic, just polite, the kind of smile you give a stranger at Whole Foods. "Didn't Aunt Serena tell you? I've been staying here to help with the estate transition. We're getting everything ready for the new owners." The new owners. What new owners? The words came out slowly, like I was translating from another language. Isabella's smile faltered. "The Thompsons? The family who bought the house?" She said it like I was being slow on purpose. "The closing is in 2 weeks. I thought you knew." I stared at her. "Nobody told me anything." "Oh." She blinked, her expression shifting to something that might have been concern if you didn't know her. "Well, I mean, it's been really fast. Aunt Serena handled most of it. She said you were too overwhelmed with grief to deal with estate stuff, so she stepped in, to help." Too overwhelmed. To help. I wanted to laugh, or scream. I wasn't sure which. "Where's my mom?" I managed. "She and Uncle Aurelian are meeting with the real estate attorney. They should be back soon." Isabella glanced at her Apple Watch. "Like, any minute, actually. You want some water or something? I just made a smoothie." "I'm fine." I wasn't fine. I was the opposite of fine. But I needed to think, and I couldn't do that while Isabella stood there offering me kale smoothies in my dead grandfather's kitchen. I walked past her, down the hallway to Abuelo's study. That door was closed, and for a second I hoped, maybe they hadn't touched it yet. Maybe there was still something left that felt like him. I opened the door. The room was darker than I remembered. Someone had changed the curtains, heavy beige things that blocked the afternoon light. Very Instagram minimalist, very not Salvador, but his desk was still there. The massive mahogany piece he'd refinished himself, with its dozen little drawers and the leather writing surface worn smooth by decades of use. I could still smell the cedar oil he used to polish it. I moved toward it like it was a life raft. Most of the drawers were empty. I opened them one by one. Nothing. Nothing. Old receipts. Nothing. A dried-out pen. Nothing. The last drawer on the right was locked. I pulled the handle. Locked. I tried again. Harder. Definitely locked. And then I saw it. Just beneath the keyhole, carved into the wood so faintly you'd miss it unless you were looking. A.M. My initials, Alondra Martinez. My breath caught. I ran my fingers over the letters, feeling the grooves. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. This was... "Mija," I whispered to the empty room, hearing his voice in my head. "When they doubt you, look deeper." He'd told me that once, years ago, when I was struggling in college and everyone kept saying I should switch majors, that library science wasn't practical. He'd sat me down at this exact desk and said, "The people who tell you to quit are the ones who gave up on their own dreams. Don't let their fear become your ceiling." I stood up fast, my heart pounding. I needed to open this drawer. I needed to... "Alondra?" I spun around. My mother stood in the doorway, perfectly composed as always. Serena Martinez at 55 looked like she'd walked out of a Real Housewives casting call. Immaculate blowout, designer blazer, heels that clicked on hardwood like a countdown timer. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Sweetheart, I didn't know you were coming by today." Nobody tells me anything, apparently. I didn't move from the desk. She stepped into the room, and I caught a whiff of her signature perfume, Chanel No. 5, the same scent she'd worn my entire life. Funny how a smell can make you feel like a child again, even when you're 28 and fighting for your life. Well, you're here now. Good. She glanced around at the study with the expression of someone surveying a renovation project. We were going to call you this week anyway. There are some papers we need you to sign, just formalities really, but the title company needs everything buttoned up before closing. What closing, Mom? The house sale, honey. We found a wonderful family, the Thompsons. They have 3 kids, and they're offering above market value. It's really the best outcome for everyone. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The best outcome. Of course. She moved to the window, adjusting the awful beige curtains. This place is far too much for you to handle
and
on
this is
your
stories
own.
of how I'm
The
lies.
property taxes
Sometimes the
alone
people
are
who gave
nearly
you life are the
$15,000
to
a
train you
year,
erase
and
it and
then there's
privateness.
maintenance,
And this is
insurance,
stories of
the
how I'm lies.
HOA fees.
Sometimes the people who gave you
Abuelo
life are the
told me he
to
was
train you
leaving
erase
me
it
the
and private.
house. The words hung in the air. My mother turned slowly, her smile still in place, but her eyes sharper now. Oh, sweetheart, I know he said things like that. He said a lot of things toward the end, but verbal promises don't hold up in probate court. The house was held in a family trust, which means what? Which means your father and I, as trustees, have the authority to make decisions about the estate. We're doing this for you, Alondra, to protect you from a burden you're not ready for. There it was, that phrase I'd heard my entire life. Not ready. Not ready for advanced classes. Not ready to live alone. Not ready for a real career. Not ready, not ready, not ready. Always too soft, too sensitive, too naive. Did you ask me? I heard myself say. If I wanted to sell it? My mother's expression shifted, just slightly, just enough. Would you have said yes? No. Exactly. She smoothed her blazer, the conversation clearly over in her mind. Which is why we handled it. You're emotional right now, grieving. You can't see clearly, but one day you'll understand we did the right thing. The front door opened, and I heard my father's voice. Serena, is Alondra here? I saw her car. Aurelian Martinez appeared behind my mother, and for a second, his face did something complicated. Guilt, maybe, or regret. He was softer than my mom, always had been. The kind of man who brought you soup when you were sick, but never stood up to his wife about anything that mattered. Hey, kiddo, he said quietly. I'm sorry. This all happened so fast. How fast? I asked. My parents exchanged a look. The offer came in 3 weeks ago, Aurelian said. Right after the funeral. We needed to move quickly before the market shifted. 3 weeks ago. While I was still crying myself to sleep every night. While I was still finding his handwriting on grocery lists and breaking down in the cereal aisle. And when were you going to tell me? We're telling you now, my mother said, her voice taking on that edge that meant the discussion was over. The closing is June 7th. We'll need your signature on a few documents. The title company has very specific requirements, but it's all standard procedure. I'm not signing anything. Silence. My mother's smile finally dropped. Alondra, don't be difficult. I'm not being difficult. I'm saying no. You don't have a choice, sweetheart. The trust gives us full authority. Then why do you need my signature? Another beat of silence. Aurelian looked at the floor. It's a formality, Serena said carefully, to avoid any potential complications down the line, which meant they did need it, which meant I had more power than they were letting on. I looked at my father. Dad, did Abuelo leave a will? The trust supersedes. My mother started. I asked Dad. Aurelian shifted his weight, not meeting my eyes. There was a will, yes, but like your mother said, the trust structure takes precedence. That's how estate law works. Can I see it, the will? It's with the attorney. Which attorney? Devin Hayes. He's handled our family legal matters for years. Serena's voice was getting sharper. Alondra, I don't know what you think you're going to find, but this is settled. The house is sold, the papers are signed. You need to accept that and move on. You said you needed my signature. For the final transfer documents, yes, but the sale itself is void without my consent. I was guessing, but her face told me I'd hit something. My mother stepped closer, and her voice dropped to that dangerous, quiet tone. Listen to me very carefully. Your grandfather died with significant medical debt. The hospice care alone was nearly $200,000. If we don't sell this house, that debt falls on the family, on us, on you. Do you want to start your adult life drowning in 6 figures of medical bills? I stared at her. You're lying. Excuse me? Abuelo had insurance, good insurance. He told me. Insurance doesn't cover everything. Show me the bills. This is ridiculous. Show me the bills. For the first time, my mother looked rattled. I don't have them on me. Then this conversation is over. I turned back to the locked drawer, my hands shaking. I want to see Abuelo's will. I want to see the trust documents, and I want to see proof of this debt. Until then, I'm not signing anything, and you can tell the Thompsons the deal is off. Alondra Martinez, you are being incredibly selfish right now. I'm being selfish? I spun around, and something inside me cracked open. You sold my grandfather's house 2 weeks after we buried him. You packed up my childhood like it was trash. You didn't call, didn't ask, didn't even tell me until I walked in and saw someone else's name on the mailbox. And I'm the selfish one? My father put a hand on my mother's arm. Serena, maybe we should… She shook him off. No, she needs to hear this. She looked at me, and her eyes were cold. You want to know the truth, Alondra? Fine. Your grandfather was a sweet man, but he was sentimental and impractical. He held on to this house like it meant something, but it's just wood and brick. It's not a shrine. It's not sacred. It's an asset, and we're treating it like one. That's what adults do. We make hard choices based on reality, not emotion. He loved this house. He loved a lot of things. That doesn't make them worth keeping. The words hit like a slap. I looked at my father, hoping, I don't know what I was hoping, that he'd stand up for me, that he'd remember who his father-in-law actually was, before the sickness, before the death, when he was just Salvador, the man who taught me to use a table saw and told terrible jokes and cried at every quinceañera. But Aurelian just stood there, hands in his pockets, a man who'd given up fighting his battles years ago. Get out, I whispered. What? My mother's eyebrows shot up. Get out of this house, both of you. Alondra, you can't… This is still Abuelo's house until those papers are signed, and I'm not signing them, so get out. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then my mother grabbed her purse, her face tight with controlled fury. You're making a mistake, she said quietly. A big one. And when you realize that, don't come crying to me about the consequences. She turned and walked out, heels clicking down the hallway like gunshots. My father lingered for a second. Kiddo, he said softly. She's just trying to help. No, Dad. She's just trying to control. I met his eyes. And you're letting her. Something flickered across his face. Shame, maybe. But he didn't argue. He just nodded once and followed his wife out the door. I stood alone in the study, listening to their car start and drive away, gravel crunching under tires. Then I turned back to the locked drawer. I'd learned to pick locks when I was 12. Abuelo had taught me after I locked myself out of the house 3 times in one summer. A useful skill, mija, he'd said, handing me a bobby pin. Not for breaking in, for getting back to what's already yours. I pulled a hairpin from my purse and knelt by the drawer, my hands steadier now that I was alone. The lock was old, simple. It took me less than 30 seconds. The drawer slid open. Inside, a single manila envelope, my name written across the front in Salvador's distinctive handwriting. All caps, slightly shaky from the arthritis that had plagued his last years, but unmistakably his. For Alondra. Open when they sell. My throat closed up. He'd known. He'd known what they'd do. I lifted the envelope with trembling hands and opened it. Inside, 2 things. A copy of what looked like a legal document, and a handwritten letter on his favorite stationery, the cream-colored paper with his initials embossed at the top. I unfolded the letter first. Mija, if you're reading this, they did exactly what I feared. They will say it's for your own good. Don't believe them. Check 3 things. 1. The signature date. 2. Where you were. 3. What's behind the willow? The truth is always in the details. Trust yourself louder than they doubt you. Con tu abuelo, Salvador. I read it twice, then 3 times, my vision blurring. Check the signature date, where I was. I grabbed my phone and pulled up my email, searching for the documents my mother had mentioned. There, an email from Martinez Family Trust, sent this morning with the subject line, Transfer Documents, Signature Required. I downloaded the PDF attachment with shaking fingers. Property Transfer Agreement. Sale price, $615,000. Buyers, Richard and Amanda Thompson. Closing date, June 7th. And there, on page 4, my signature. Alondra Martinez, signed on May 13th, 2024. But I hadn't signed anything. I'd never even seen these documents until right now. I pulled up my calendar app, scrolling back to May 13th, and then my heart stopped. May 13th. I was in Seattle at the National Librarians Conference. I'd presented on a panel about literacy programs in underserved communities. I had flight records, hotel receipts, a conference badge with my photo, 40 witnesses who could confirm I was 1,200 miles away from Texas. They'd forged my signature. My own mother had forged my signature on legal documents. I sat back against the desk, the room spinning. This wasn't just family drama. This wasn't just a misunderstanding about estate wishes. This was fraud, criminal fraud. I looked at the letter again. What's behind the willow? The willow tree in the backyard. The one Abuelo had planted the year I was born, because he said every child should have a tree that grows with them. I stood up, grabbing the letter and my phone, and headed for the back door. The evening light was fading now, turning everything golden and soft. The yard looked the same. Overgrown grass, the garden beds Salvador had tended, the old stone patio where we used to eat breakfast on Saturdays. And there, in the far corner, the willow tree, its branches sweeping down like a curtain. I walked toward it, my heart pounding. Behind the tree, the fence line. Nothing obvious. I knelt down, pushing aside the long grass, running my hands along the ground. And then I felt it. Loose dirt. Recently disturbed. I started digging with my bare hands, dirt caking under my fingernails, and within minutes I hit something hard. Metal. A lockbox. Small, fireproof, with a combination lock. I sat back on my heels, staring at it. A combination lock meant I needed numbers, but Abuelo wouldn't make it random. He'd make it something I'd know. My birthday? I tried it. Nothing. His birthday? Nothing. And then I remembered. The engraving inside my grandmother Rosa's wedding ring. The ring he'd worn on a chain around his neck after she died. Bones, 1996, their wedding date, and his favorite saying, "This family has good bones." I spun the dial, 1996. Click. The box opened. Inside, wrapped in a sealed plastic bag, a USB drive, a small keyring with 2 keys I didn't recognize, and a note card. The note card read, Safe Deposit Box number 247, First National Bank. Password, BONES1996. And written underneath in smaller letters, "The truth is always in the details, mija. Don't let them bury it." I sat there in the growing darkness, holding a USB drive that apparently contained evidence of something. Holding keys to a safe deposit box I didn't know existed, and I realized my grandfather hadn't just left me a house. He'd left me a weapon. I didn't sleep that night. Back at my apartment, a 1-bedroom in East Austin that cost too much and had paper-thin walls, I sat at my kitchen table with the USB drive, the keys, and Salvador's letter spread out in front of me like evidence at a crime scene, which, I was starting to realize, is exactly what this was. My laptop sat open, the USB drive plugged in, but I hadn't clicked on it yet. Part of me was terrified of what I'd find. The other part, the part that had been growing stronger since I walked out of that house, was ready to burn everything down. I started with what I could verify myself. First, the signature. I pulled up the transfer documents again and zoomed in on my supposed signature on page 4. Then I opened my photos and found a picture of my lease agreement from last year. I held my phone next to the laptop screen, comparing. The forgery was good. Really good. They'd gotten the slant right, the general flow, even the stupid little curl I do on the Z in Martinez. But there were differences. Small ones. The kind you'd only notice if you were looking. My real signature had 3 peaks on the capital M, always had, since 4th grade when Mrs. Chen taught us cursive. The forged one only had 2, and the A in Alondra, I always connected it to the L in one smooth motion. The fake signature had a tiny break between the letters, less than a millimeter, but it was there. I screenshot everything, zoomed in, marked up the images with red circles highlighting the differences. My hands were shaking but steady. Anger does that, gives you a weird kind of clarity. Next, the date. May 13th, 2024, the day I supposedly signed away my inheritance. I pulled up my email and searched for Seattle. There it was. My flight confirmation. Alaska Airlines Flight 447, Austin to Seattle, departing May 11th at 6:45 a.m. Return flight May 16th at 3:30 p.m. I downloaded the confirmation, saved it as a PDF, added it to a folder I titled Evidence Do Not Delete. Then I went through my photos from that week. Me at the conference registration desk, name badge visible, timestamp in the corner, May 12th, 9:47 a.m. Me on the panel discussion, mid-presentation, the banner behind me reading National Librarians Conference 2024, Seattle, Washington. Timestamp May 13th, 2:15 p.m. The exact day and time I was supposedly in Texas signing documents. I had an alibi. A perfect, documented, photographed alibi. They'd forged my signature on a day I could prove I was 1,200 miles away. Amateurs. Or maybe they just never thought I'd check. I made coffee at 3 a.m. because sleep wasn't happening anyway. My mind was racing, connecting dots, seeing patterns. This wasn't just about selling the house quickly. There was something else, something bigger that I wasn't seeing yet. What's behind the willow? Salvador's letter had said. I'd found the lockbox, the USB drive, the keys to a safe deposit box. But why? Why go to all this trouble unless there was more at stake than just a house? I looked at the USB drive sitting next to my laptop. Small, black, ordinary, containing God knows what. My cursor hovered over it. Just open it, I told myself. Whatever it is, you need to know. I double-clicked. One folder. For Alondra. Watch this first. Inside, a single video file. MOV format. 47 minutes long. Date created, March 3rd, 2024. 7 weeks before he died. I hit play. The video opened on Salvador's face, too close to the camera at first, before he adjusted it back. He was sitting at his desk, the same desk where I'd found the locked drawer, wearing his favorite flannel shirt and his reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked tired, thinner than I remembered, but his eyes were clear. Okay, I think it's recording now. He squinted at the screen. Technology never gets easier. A soft laugh and my chest ached. Alondra, mi tesoro, if you're watching this, I'm gone. And your mother has done exactly what I knew she would. He paused, looking directly into the camera. This isn't about the house, mija. I mean, it is, but it's bigger than that. It's about what's in the house. And I need you to understand what you're really fighting for. He stood up, the camera shaking slightly as he adjusted it to follow him. He walked to the wall where 3 paintings hung. I recognized them immediately. They'd been in his house my entire life. In 1987, I bought these 3 paintings from an estate sale in Santa Fe. He gestured to the first one, a small sketch of a woman in profile. The seller thought they were reproductions. They weren't. He moved to stand next to the sketch. This is a Diego Rivera, original, from his early period around 1918. Not one of his murals, just a small study he did of a street vendor. The seller's grandmother had bought it in Mexico City in the 1920s for almost nothing. My coffee went cold in my hands. The other 2, He moved to the next painting, a desert landscape in deep oranges and reds. This is Desert Bloom by Maria Gonzalez, 1943. And this one, the third painting, a moody evening scene, Evening in Taos by Robert Chambers, 1947, both authenticated masters of the Southwestern movement. He walked back to the desk and sat down heavily. In 2019, I had them quietly appraised by Dr. Helena Orozco, a specialist in Latin American and Southwestern art. I was curious about their value for insurance purposes. He pulled out a folder, held it up to the camera. These are the authentication certificates, the appraisal reports, the insurance valuations. He set the folder down and looked straight into the camera again. Together, Alondra, these 3 paintings are worth approximately $2.3 million. I choked on air. Your mother found out last year. I don't know how. I was careful, but Serena has always been good at finding things she's not supposed to know. She came to me in October and asked me to sell them. Said she and Aurelian were in financial trouble, needed money for a business opportunity in California. Salvador's expression hardened. I said no. These paintings weren't bought as investments, mija. They were bought because they were beautiful, because they meant something, because art isn't just about market value, it's about what it says, what it preserves, what it passes down. He rubbed his eyes, suddenly looking older. She didn't take it well. She said, and I quote, "Fine. Then when you're gone, I'll do it myself." My stomach dropped. I knew then what she'd do. She'd wait until I was dead, sell the house fast, swap the originals for reproductions, and liquidate the art before anyone noticed. Clean, efficient, and completely illegal. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. That's why I updated my will in March. The house goes to you, Alondra. Not the trust, not your parents, you. Along with everything in it, including these paintings. The will supersedes the old family trust. Devin Hayes knows this, even if he's pretending he doesn't. Salvador picked up a piece of paper, showed it to the camera. I could see the header, Last Will and Testament. This is the original. The copy I left with Devin is legally binding, but I don't trust him not to lose it if your mother asks nicely enough. So I put another copy in my safe deposit box at First National Bank. Box 247. The keys are in the lockbox behind the willow. He set the paper down. The password for the box is Bones1996. Our family motto and your grandmother's favorite year, the year you were born. His expression softened. I know this is a lot, mija. I know you're grieving. I know you probably just want this to be over so you can mourn in peace. Tears were running down my face now. But I need you to fight. Not because the house is worth money, not because the art is valuable, but because Serena is trying to erase you. She's trying to take what's yours and pretend she has the right. And if you let her do this, if you let her bully you into silence, she'll do it again and again for the rest of your life. He leaned back in his chair. You're not too soft, Alondra. You're not too sensitive. You're not too anything. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. Someone who listens before speaking, who thinks before acting, who cares before judging. His voice cracked slightly. Your mother sees that as weakness because she doesn't understand the difference between kindness and cowardice. But I do. Kindness is a choice that requires strength. Gentleness is power under control. Quietness is the ability to observe, strategize, and strike when it matters most. He pointed at the camera. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take this evidence to a lawyer, not Devin Hayes, a real lawyer who doesn't owe your mother any favors. You're going to file to contest the sale. You're going to present the will. And you're going to make Serena explain to a judge why she forged your signature on legal documents. He smiled, tired but fierce. She's counting on you staying quiet, on you being too polite to fight back, on you believing you don't deserve what's yours. He leaned close to the camera one more time. Prove her wrong, mija. Not for me, for you. Show her, show yourself what happens when the quiet ones finally speak. The video paused on his face, frozen mid-breath. Then it cut to black. I sat in the silence of my apartment, my face wet with tears, my coffee stone cold, and the sun starting to rise outside my window. $2.3 million. This wasn't about protecting me from property taxes or maintenance costs. This was a heist, and they were using my grief as cover. At 9 a.m. sharp, I walked into the office of Kimberly Torres, attorney at law. I'd found her online at 4 a.m. after watching Salvador's video 3 times and crying myself dry. Her website listed her specialties: estate law, probate litigation, elder abuse, fraud. Perfect. Her office was in a modest building near the courthouse, no fancy downtown high-rise like the firms my mother would use. The waiting room had comfortable chairs, good coffee, and recent magazines. The receptionist smiled like she meant it. "Ms. Martinez, Kimberly will see you now." Kimberly Torres was 34, according to her bio, but carried herself like someone who'd been winning cases since birth. Sharp blazer, sharper eyes, and a handshake that said she didn't waste time. "What can I do for you?" she asked, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. I set down the folder I'd assembled at 5 a.m. "My mother forged my signature to sell my grandfather's house, and I can prove it." Her eyebrows rose. "Show me." I walked her through everything: the letter from Salvador, the forged signature, my alibi, the video, the paintings, the safe deposit box. I laid it all out like puzzle pieces, watching her face shift from polite interest to sharp focus. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and let out a low whistle. "This is fraud, criminal fraud, and if the art is worth what you say—" She pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. "We're talking grand larceny, forgery, potentially elder abuse if she coerced him before his death. Can we stop the sale?" "Absolutely. We'll file an emergency injunction today." She was already typing on her computer. "But I need to see the will, the original if possible." "It's in a safe deposit box. I have the keys." "Good. We'll go there this afternoon. I'll also need to contact Dr. Orozco, the appraiser, and verify the painting's authentication." She looked up at me. "How are the paintings now? Still in the house?" I don't know. I didn't check." Kimberly's expression sharpened. "We need to verify that immediately. If she's already swapped them, we're dealing with a completed crime, not just attempted fraud." My stomach flipped. "How do I check without them knowing?" "Can you get back into the house?" "My cousin Isabella is staying there. She might let me in." "Then do it. Today. Take pictures of everything. Compare them to your grandfather's video. If the paintings have been swapped, we need to document it before they disappear completely." She handed me her business card. "I'll draft the injunction and the probate contest. We'll file by end of business today, but Alondra—" She fixed me with a serious look. "Your mother is going to fight this. Hard. She'll claim the will is invalid, that your grandfather was incompetent, that you're being manipulated by outside parties. This is going to get ugly." "I know. Are you ready for that? For your family to turn on you publicly?" I thought about Salvador's words. Show her what happens when the quiet ones finally speak. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." I texted Isabella at noon. "Can I stop by to pick up one more box? Found some of Abuelo's books I want to keep." She replied immediately. "Sure, but make it quick." Showing the house at 2. Showing the house to the Thompsons. Who thought they were buying it in 2 weeks? Not if I could help it. I arrived at 12:30 with an empty cardboard box for appearances and my phone fully charged. Isabella was in the kitchen making one of her green smoothies, the blender screaming. "Hey!" she shouted over the noise. "Just grabbing a few things from the study, okay?" She gave me a thumbs up, still blending. I walked quickly through the house, my heart pounding. The paintings. Where were the paintings? Living room first. The Diego Rivera sketch still hung over the fireplace, exactly where it had been in Salvador's video. I pulled out my phone and pretended to take a selfie, angling it to capture the painting in the background. Then I moved closer, using the excuse of adjusting a crooked frame on the mantel to examine the sketch up close. The signature in the corner, Diego Rivera, 1918. I zoomed in with my camera, took 3 photos from different angles. The paint looked wrong, too fresh, too smooth. Rivera's work from that period had visible craquelure, fine cracks in the aged paint. This had none. My stomach sank. I moved to the dining room. Desert bloom, by Maria Gonzalez hung on the far wall, the desert landscape glowing in burnt oranges. Same thing. The canvas texture felt wrong under my fingertips, too uniform, too new. I took more photos, my hands shaking now. The study, the third painting. Evening in Taos still hung behind Salvador's desk, the moody purple twilight scene I'd stared at 1,000 times growing up. But it wasn't the same painting. The colors were close, but the brushwork. Salvador used to point out Chambers' distinctive technique, the way he built up layers of paint in thick impasto. This painting was flat, printed, not painted. They were all fake, all three, swapped out, probably weeks ago, right after the funeral while I was too destroyed to function. I took more photos, then checked the video timestamp, 12:47 p.m. I pulled up Salvador's video on my phone, fast-forwarded to the part where he showed the paintings, screenshot the originals for comparison. Side by side, the differences were obvious. I heard Isabella's footsteps in the hallway. Quickly, I opened a random desk drawer, grabbed a couple of old books, and stuffed them in my cardboard box just as she appeared in the doorway. "Find what you needed?" she asked, sipping her smoothie. "Yeah, thanks." I smiled, the box under my arm, my phone burning in my pocket with photographic evidence of grand larceny. "No problem. Hey, are you okay? With everything?" Her expression was almost genuine. "I know this has been weird." Weird. That's what we were calling it. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just missing him." "Yeah." She looked uncomfortable. "Me too." I doubted that, but I just nodded and headed for the door. Outside, in my car, I immediately sent all the photos to Kimberly with the message. "They're all fakes. Every single one." Her response came in seconds. "Get to the bank. Now. We need that will before they realize you're onto them." First National Bank smelled like recycled air and anxiety. The safe deposit box room was in the basement, all concrete and fluorescent lights. The bank manager, a pleasant woman named Carol, verified my ID and the keys, then left me alone in a small viewing room with box number 247. I lifted the lid with shaking hands. Inside, organized with the precision I'd expect from Salvador. The original will in a protective plastic sleeve. 3 authentication certificates from Dr. Helena Orozco, dated August 2019. Insurance appraisals totaling $2,347,000. Photographs of all 3 paintings, clearly showing details, signatures, dates. A USB drive labeled Backup, Insurance Photos and Appraisals, and at the bottom, one more envelope. I opened it. A printed email chain between Serena and someone named Richard Castellano, dated March through April of this year. My hands went numb as I read. From Serena Martinez, serena.m.martinez@gmail.com to Richard Castellano, richard@castellanogallery.com. Date, March 15, 2024. Subject, Art, Consignment, Salvador Martinez Estate. Richard, my father mentioned you're one of the premier dealers for Southwestern and Latin American art. I'm reaching out regarding 3 pieces from his collection that the family has decided to sell. 1. Diego Rivera sketch, 1918. 2. Desert Bloom, Maria Gonzalez, 1943. 3. Evening in Taos, Robert Chambers, 1947. I've attached photos and existing appraisal documents. Could you provide a valuation for quick sale? Preferably before end of May. Best, Serena Martinez. From Richard Castellano, richard@castellanogallery.com. To Serena Martinez, serena.m.martinez@gmail.com. Date, March 18, 2024. Subject, R.E., Art Consignment, Salvador Martinez Estate. Ms. Martinez, I'm so sorry to hear about Salvador. I met him briefly in 2019 when Dr. Orozco was doing authentication work. He was a wonderful man with an excellent eye. Based on current market conditions, I can offer $1.9 million for the 3 pieces. Wholesale for quick turnaround. Retail would be significantly higher, but given your timeline, this reflects a fair immediate sale price. I can wire deposit upon receipt and finalize sale by mid-June. Please send account information for transfer. Best regards, Richard Castellano. From Serena Martinez, serena.m. Martinez@gmail.com. 2. Richard Castellano, richard@castellanogallery.com. Date, March 20th, 2024. Subject, R.E. Art Consignment, Salvador Martinez Estate. Richard, $1.9 million is acceptable. Wire transfer details below. S.M. Art Acquisitions, LLC. Account, redacted. Routing, redacted. Pieces will be available for pickup after June 15th. I'll confirm exact date closer to time. Thank you, Serena. I stared at the emails, my mind reeling. SM Art Acquisitions, LLC, a shell company, set up specifically to receive stolen art proceeds. She'd planned this in March, while Salvador was dying. While he was in hospice, too weak to fight, she was already setting up the infrastructure to steal his legacy. And the timeline, available for pickup after June 15th, that was a week after the house closing. She was going to sell the house with the fakes in place, pocket $615,000 from the Thompsons, then separately sell the real paintings for $1.9 million. Total haul, $2.5 million. And she was going to do it while telling me it was for my own good. I pulled out my phone and called Kimberly. I need you to add art theft and money laundering to the charges, I said without preamble. And I know who's buying the paintings. Richard Castellano, Kimberly repeated, typing rapidly. The gallery owner in Santa Fe. He has an email trail with my mother. She's selling him the paintings for $1.9 million through a shell company. Send me everything. Screenshots, account numbers, all of it. I spent the next hour in that bank basement, photographing every document, every email, every piece of evidence Salvador had left me. When I finally emerged, blinking in the afternoon sunlight, I had enough evidence to destroy my mother's entire scheme. I called Kimberly again. We need to contact Richard Castellano, warn him he's buying stolen property. Already on it. I'll draft a cease and desist letter. If he's smart, he'll withdraw his offer immediately and cooperate with authorities. And if he's not smart, then he'll be charged alongside your mother. I got in my car, my phone buzzing with a text from Isabella. Thompsons loved the house, made an offer to close early. Mom is thrilled. Of course she was. The faster the house sold, the faster she could move the art. I texted back, "That's great," with a smiley emoji that felt like poison in my mouth. Another text, this one from my mother. "Alondra, we need to talk. Can you meet me for lunch tomorrow?" I stared at it. She wanted to corner me, probably pressure me to sign documents, maybe offer some token compromise to keep me quiet. I typed back, "Can't tomorrow. Busy with work." Her response was immediate. "This is important. Family should come first." The irony was almost funny. "I'll check my schedule," I sent, then muted the conversation. Over the next 3 days, everything moved fast. Day 1. Kimberly filed the emergency injunction halting the house sale. The Thompsons' real estate agent called my mother in a panic. I heard about it through Isabella's Instagram story. Some people will do anything for attention, #family-drama. Day 2. Richard Castellano's lawyer responded to Kimberly's cease and desist letter. Richard claimed he had no idea the sale wasn't legitimate, provided full documentation of his correspondence with Serena, and formally withdrew his offer. He also agreed to testify if needed. My mother's art buyer just became our witness. Day 3. Kimberly contacted Dr. Helena Orozco, the appraiser. Dr. Orozco remembered Salvador well, had detailed notes from her 2019 evaluation, and was willing to provide expert testimony about both the painting's value and Salvador's mental competence at the time. "He was sharp as a tack," she told Kimberly on speakerphone while I listened in. "We spent 2 full days going through the pieces. He knew exactly what he had and why it mattered. If anything, he was more mentally acute than most people half his age. That testimony would demolish any claim that Salvador was incompetent when he updated his will." The probate hearing was scheduled for the following Monday, 5 days away. On day 4, my mother hired a lawyer, not just any lawyer, Douglas Brennan, known in Austin legal circles as the guy you hire when you need someone ruthless. He filed an immediate countermotion. 1. contesting the will's validity, claiming Salvador had dementia. 2. Asserting the family trust's legal supremacy. 3. Requesting a psychological evaluation of me, alleging I was emotionally unstable and potentially being manipulated by outside parties. That last one stung, but it was the social media campaign that really hurt. Isabella posted a carefully filtered photo of herself in Salvador's study, the caption reading, "Some people care more about money than honoring the dead. Abuelo deserved peace, not family fighting over his estate. Disappointed in people who claim to love him but only love what he left behind. Hashtag RIP, hashtag family first, hashtag heartbroken." The comments poured in. So sad when greed tears families apart. Let the man rest in peace. Some people have no shame. Money changes people. Nobody knew I was the one fighting to protect Salvador's wishes, not override them. But the narrative had been set. I was the greedy granddaughter fighting a grieving family. My phone started buzzing with messages from old family friends, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Alondra, what's going on? Your mom says you're trying to contest the will? This is so unlike you. Are you okay?" "Family is more important than money, sweetie." I didn't respond to any of them. What was I supposed to say? "Actually, my mother forged my signature and is stealing $2.5 million in art?" They wouldn't believe me. Not until I proved it in court. On day 5, my father called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Alondra." His voice was quiet, strained. "Can we talk? Just you and me?" "About what, Dad?" "About everything. Please, just give me 5 minutes." I sighed. "Fine. 5 minutes." There was a long pause, and I heard him walking, a door closing. When he spoke again, his voice was even quieter. "Your mother doesn't know I'm calling. That's a first. Alondra, please, just listen." He took a breath. "I know what she did. The signature, the emails to the art dealer, all of it." My chest tightened. "You knew?" Not at first, but I figured it out. The timeline didn't make sense. You were in Seattle. I remembered because you'd told me about the panel you were presenting on." His voice cracked. "I confronted her about it." And she said it was necessary, that you'd never agree to sell, that we needed the money, that this was the only way to save our financial situation. "What financial situation?" Another long pause. "My business failed, Alondra. 2 years ago, the investment firm. We lost everything. Client lawsuits, debt collection, bankruptcy looming. We're $340,000 in the hole." The number hit me like a punch. "We were drowning," he continued. "Your mother saw Salvador's art as the only life raft. She thought if we could just get enough to clear the debt, we could start over." "So you let her commit fraud?" "I didn't—" He stopped. "Yes, I did. I knew it was wrong, and I let her do it anyway because I was too afraid to stop her. Too ashamed to admit we needed help. Too weak to stand up and say no." I sat down on my apartment floor, back against the wall. "Dad, if you'd just asked. If you'd told me about the debt, I would have helped. We could have sold one painting legally with proper documentation. We could have figured something out." "I know." His voice broke completely. "I know that now, but your mother—" "She was so sure you'd say no. So sure you'd judge us for failing, and I was too proud to prove her wrong." Silence stretched between us. "What do you want from me, Dad? Forgiveness? Permission to keep stealing from Abuelo's estate?" "No, I want—" He struggled for words. "I want you to know that I'm sorry, that I'm not going to fight you in court, that if you need me to testify about what I know, I will." I blinked, surprised. "You'd testify against Mom?" "I'd testify for the truth, which happens to be against what we did." He let out a bitter laugh. "I'm going to lose my marriage over this. Serena will never forgive me, but I can't lose my daughter, too. Not over something we did wrong." Tears were running down my face now. "The hearing is Monday," I said quietly. "If you mean what you're saying, Kimberly needs your statement by Sunday. You'll have it." A pause. "Alondra, Your grandfather would be proud of you for fighting, for not backing down. Yeah, well, Abuelo shouldn't have had to set all this up in the first place. He should have been able to trust his own daughter. You're right. He should have. I'm sorry we weren't the people he deserved. After we hung up, I sat there in the silence of my apartment, holding my phone, crying for everything that had been broken in my family and wondering if any of it could ever be fixed. My phone buzzed. A text from Kimberly. Just got a call from Douglas Brennan. He wants to talk settlement. Your mother is getting scared. I wiped my eyes and typed back. No settlement. We go to court. I want this on the record. Her response. That's my girl. See you Monday. Bring everything. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. Again. I kept reading the comments on Isabella's posts, seeing my name dragged through mud by people who didn't know the full story, seeing myself painted as greedy, vindictive, ungrateful. Part of me wanted to screenshot all the evidence and post it online. Look, this is what really happened. But Kimberly had been clear. Don't litigate this on social media. Save it for court where it matters. So I stayed silent while the internet tore me apart. At 2 a.m., I opened Salvador's video one more time, watched him point to the paintings, watched him explain the plan, watched him tell me I wasn't too soft. And then he said something I'd missed the first 3 times. Bones are strongest under pressure, mija. That's when you find out what you're really made of. I closed my laptop. Tomorrow, we'd find out what I was made of. Tomorrow, the quiet one would finally speak. And they were going to listen whether they wanted to or not. Travis County Probate Court, Courtroom 4B, looked exactly like every courtroom I'd ever seen on TV. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, that particular smell of old carpet and institutional air conditioning. But being there in person, with everything I loved on the line, made it feel completely different. Surreal, terrifying, inevitable. I sat next to Kimberly at the plaintiff's table, my folder of evidence in front of me, my hands folded to keep them from shaking. Across the aisle, my mother sat with Douglas Brennan, looking impeccable in a charcoal suit. Aurelian sat behind them, but when I glanced back, he wouldn't meet my eyes. The gallery was surprisingly full. Isabella was there, recording on her phone until the bailiff made her stop. A few family friends. Some people I didn't recognize, probably law students or courthouse regulars looking for drama. Judge Margaret Huang entered at exactly 9:30 a.m. She was 60-something with steel gray hair pulled back in a bun and the expression of someone who'd heard every excuse in the book and believed none of them. "All rise," the bailiff called. We stood. My knees felt like water. "Be seated," Judge Huang said, settling into her chair and opening the case file. "This is case number PR-2024-8847, Martinez Estate Dispute. We're here on an emergency motion to halt property transfer and contest trust authority." She looked up over her reading glasses. "Ms. Torres, you filed the motion. Proceed." Kimberly stood, smooth and confident. "Thank you, Your Honor. We're here because my client, Alondra Martinez, has been systematically excluded from decisions about her grandfather Salvador Martinez's estate, despite being the primary beneficiary in his last will and testament, executed March 3, 2024, just 7 weeks before his death." Douglas Brennan was already shaking his head. "Furthermore," Kimberly continued, "we have evidence that documents bearing my client's signature were forged while she was provably out of state, and that the opposing party has engaged in a coordinated effort to misappropriate estate assets valued at over $2 million. Judge Huang's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's quite an accusation, Ms. Torres. I assume you have evidence?" "Substantial evidence, Your Honor." "Then let's see it. Call your first witness." I call Alondra Martinez to the stand. My legs didn't want to work. Kimberly gave me an encouraging nod, and somehow I stood and walked to the witness box. The bailiff swore me in. My voice sounded thin and far away. "I do." Kimberly approached with a gentle smile. "Ms. Martinez, can you describe your relationship with your grandfather Salvador?" I took a breath. He was the most important person in my life. My parents divorced when I was young. I caught myself. Sorry, I mean, they were busy with work. Abuelo was the one who raised me, really. Every Sunday dinner. every school event my parents missed. He taught me to read, to build things, to think critically. He was my best friend. And did he ever discuss his estate plans with you? Yes, multiple times. He told me the house would be mine, that everything in it was meant for me. He said, my voice caught, he said I was the only one who understood what it all meant. Did he leave you any instructions about what to do after his death? He left me a letter and a video. Kimberly nodded to the bailiff, who set up a laptop connected to the courtroom monitor. Your Honor, I'd like to play a video recorded by Salvador Martinez on March 3, 2024, 7 weeks before his death. Douglas Brennan stood immediately. Objection, Foundation. We have no way to verify when this video was made or if it's been edited. Your Honor, Kimberly countered. We have the original metadata from the file, phone records showing Mr. Martinez's iPhone created this video on the stated date, and testimony from the notary who witnessed his will signing the same day. The video is authentic. Judge Huang considered. Objection overruled. Play the video. The lights dimmed slightly. Salvador's face appeared on screen. I couldn't watch. I kept my eyes on my hands, but I heard every word. Heard him explain the paintings, the appraisals, Serena's plan. His voice filled the courtroom like he was there, testifying from beyond death. When it finished, the silence was complete. Judge Huang was the first to speak. That's quite clear. Mr. Brennan, your client has any response to these allegations? Douglas Brennan looked rattled but recovered quickly. Your Honor, this video proves nothing except that an elderly man suffering from documented cognitive decline was paranoid and confused about his daughter's intentions. Documented cognitive decline? Kimberly interrupted. Your Honor, we have expert testimony that directly contradicts that claim. Then call your expert, Ms. Torres. Dr. Helena Orozco appeared via video conference from Albuquerque. She was in her 60s with kind eyes and the authoritative bearing of someone who'd spent 40 years in her field. Kimberly established her credentials, PhD in art history, 25 years as a museum curator, certified appraiser, expert witness in dozens of cases. Then got to the point. Dr. Orozco, you met with Salvador Martinez in August 2019 to authenticate 3 paintings. Can you describe his mental state during that evaluation? Absolutely. Dr. Orozco smiled slightly. Mr. Martinez was one of the sharpest clients I've ever worked with. We spent 2 full days going through the pieces. He had detailed provenance documentation, asked sophisticated questions about authentication methodology, and displayed exceptional recall about where and when he'd acquired each work. There was 0 indication of cognitive impairment. Did you have any contact with him after 2019? Yes. He called me in February of this year, 2024, to ask about insurance valuations. We spoke for nearly an hour. Again, he was completely lucid, organized, and mentally acute. February 2024, that was 1 month before he updated his will. If you say so, yes. Kimberly pulled up a document on screen. This is a medical record from March 2024, submitted by opposing counsel, claiming Mr. Martinez had significant cognitive decline. Your professional opinion, Dr. Orozco, does that match the man you spoke with? Not even remotely. The Salvador Martinez I knew in February 2024 was sharp, focused, and completely in command of his faculties. Douglas Brennan stood for cross-examination. Dr. Orozco, you're not a medical doctor, correct? I'm not an MD, no. So you can't actually diagnose dementia or cognitive impairment. I can recognize it when I see it, and I didn't see it. But you can't rule it out medically. I can rule it out observationally. A person with significant dementia doesn't remember acquisition dates from 1987, doesn't ask detailed questions about UV light degradation in oil paint, and doesn't negotiate insurance coverage terms. Mr. Martinez did all of those things. Brennan shifted tactics. You said you spoke in February. Do you have proof of that call? Dr. Orozco smiled. I have phone records, yes. I also have notes from our conversation, time-stamped and saved in my client management system. Would you like me to send them over? Brennan sat down. No further questions. Next, Kimberly called a forensic document examiner named Patricia Whitmore, who'd analyzed the signatures on the property transfer documents. Patricia was all business, gray suit, no jewelry, the kind of person who dealt in facts, not feelings. Ms. Whitmore, you examined two signatures purportedly made by Alondra Martinez. What did you find? Patricia pulled up side-by-side images on the monitor. The signature on the lease agreement from 2023 is consistent with natural handwriting variation. The signature on the May 13th property transfer shows several indicators of forgery. She used a laser pointer to highlight differences. First, the capital M in Martinez. Ms. Martinez's authentic signature consistently shows 3 peaks in the M formation, here, here, and here. The questioned signature shows only 2 peaks. Red circles appeared on screen. Second, the connection between the A and L in Alondra. The authentic signature shows a fluid, continuous stroke. The questioned signature shows a break, a pen lift, indicating the forger was copying rather than signing naturally. More circles. Third, pressure variation. Authentic signatures show varied pressure as the hand moves naturally. Forged signatures typically show uniform pressure because the forger is concentrating on accuracy over speed. The May 13th signature shows uniform pressure throughout, and Judge Huang leaned forward. Ms. Whitmore, in your professional opinion, did Alondra Martinez sign the May 13th document? No, Your Honor, she did not. This is a skilled forgery, but it is definitively not her authentic signature. Brennan tried to poke holes. Wasn't handwriting analysis subjective? Couldn't signatures vary naturally? But Patricia was unshakable. She'd testified in federal cases. She knew her stuff. Then Kimberly played her trump card. Your Honor, we also have proof that Ms. Martinez could not have signed these documents on May 13th because she was 1,200 miles away in Seattle, Washington. She submitted flight records, hotel receipts, conference registration. Photos time-stamped May 13th showing Alondra on a panel discussion in front of 200 witnesses. The signature is forged, Kimberly said flatly, and we can prove my client wasn't even in Texas when it was supposedly made. I watched my mother's face across the aisle. She'd gone very pale. Douglas Brennan stood for his defense, calling Serena to the stand. My mother took the oath with her head high, her voice steady. She looked like the victim here, a grieving daughter just trying to manage a complicated estate. Mrs. Martinez, Brennan began gently, why did you sell your father's house? To protect my daughter. Serena's voice wavered perfectly. The property taxes alone are $15,000 a year. Maintenance costs, insurance, HOA fees. Alondra works at a public library. She makes $42,000 a year. This house would have bankrupted her within 2 years. Several people in the gallery nodded sympathetically. And the signature discrepancy? I don't know anything about that. The title company handled all the paperwork. If there was an error, it wasn't intentional. She looked directly at me, eyes glistening. I love my daughter. Everything I did was to spare her from crushing debt. It was a good performance. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her. Kimberly stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Martinez, you mentioned protecting your daughter from debt, but you failed to mention you and your husband have $340,000 in personal debt. Isn't that correct? Serena's mask slipped for just a second. My husband's business failed. That has nothing to do with... Doesn't it? Isn't it true that you contacted art dealer Richard Castellano in March about selling your father's paintings for $1.9 million? Those paintings are estate assets. Assets that belong to your daughter per the will. Assets you planned to sell without her knowledge or consent. Kimberly pulled up the emails on screen. This is your email address, correct? Serena mmmartinez@gmail.com? Yes, but... And this is you arranging to sell artwork worth $2.3 million for $1.9 million to be deposited in an LLC you created specifically for this purpose. SM Art Acquisitions. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Is that your company, Mrs. Martinez? Serena's lawyer was on his feet. Your Honor, this is inflammatory. It's directly relevant, Kimberly shot back. This isn't about protecting her daughter. This is about liquidating estate assets to cover personal debt. Judge Huang banged her gavel. Mr. Brennan, does your client have an explanation for these emails? Before Brennan could answer, Kimberly dropped the bomb. Your Honor, I have one more piece of evidence. A text exchange between Douglas Brennan and Richard Castellano from April 23rd. She pulled it up on screen. The text read, "We've got it handled. Quick sale, minimal publicity. I'll take my standard 10% finder's fee once the wire clears. Keep this quiet." The courtroom went dead silent. Judge Huang's voice was ice. "Mr. Brennan, is this your phone number?" Douglas Brennan had gone gray. "Your Honor, I can explain. You were negotiating a finder's fee on the sale of disputed estate assets while representing the party accused of misappropriating those assets. The arrangement was, it was separate from my legal representation. It's a massive conflict of interest," Kimberly's voice rang out. "He's not just representing Mrs. Martinez, he's financially invested in the fraud she's committing." Judge Huang stood. "Mr. Brennan, you are dismissed from this case effective immediately. I'm referring this matter to the State Bar for disciplinary proceedings. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Brennan from my courtroom." Douglas Brennan tried to protest, but the bailiff was already moving. Within seconds, he was gone, leaving Serena sitting at the defense table alone, her composure finally cracking. Judge Huang turned to her. "Mrs. Martinez, I strongly suggest you obtain new counsel. This hearing is continued for 1 week. In the meantime, the emergency injunction stands. No asset transfers, no property sales, nothing moves until we sort this out. Understood?" Serena nodded mutely. "And Mrs. Martinez?" The judge's voice softened just slightly. "I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen a lot of family disputes over money, but I've never seen someone go to this much trouble to steal from their own daughter while claiming it's for her benefit. If you have any decency left, you'll settle this before we have to come back here." Judge Huang looked at me. "Ms. Martinez, do you wish to make a statement?" I hadn't planned to. Kimberly and I had agreed to let the evidence speak for itself, but something in me, something that had been quiet for 28 years, suddenly needed to speak. "Yes, Your Honor, if I may." I stood slowly, my legs shaking but holding. "I want to explain why I'm doing this, because it's not about money. It's not about the house. It's not even really about the paintings." I looked at my mother for the first time since the hearing started. It's about being erased. My whole life I've been told I'm too soft, too sensitive, too naive to handle real responsibility. I'm the quiet one, the one who doesn't make waves, the one you can make decisions for because I won't fight back. And for a long time I believed that. I thought being kind meant being weak, that being gentle meant being easy to control, that staying quiet meant I didn't deserve to be heard. But my grandfather saw something different. He saw someone who listens before speaking, who thinks before acting, who cares deeply but doesn't need to be loud about it. He didn't leave me that house because he thought I needed protecting from it. He left it to me because he knew I'd protect what it represented. Not just wood and brick, but memory, legacy, love. My voice was shaking, but I kept going. My mother didn't just forge my signature. She didn't just sell my inheritance. She tried to erase me from my own grandfather's story. She made decisions about my life, my future, my capabilities, and she did it without ever asking what I wanted. I turned to address the courtroom. For anyone watching who thinks this is about a greedy granddaughter fighting over money, it's not. This is about being seen, being heard, being trusted to make my own choices, even if they're hard ones. If my mother had come to me and said, "We're in trouble, we need to sell one painting to cover debt," I would have listened. We could have figured it out together, legally, honestly. But she didn't ask. She didn't trust me. She saw someone too weak to handle the truth. I looked at Judge Huang. "I'm not too weak, Your Honor. I'm standing here fighting for what my grandfather believed I deserved, fighting for my right to be included in decisions about my own life, fighting to prove that quiet people aren't powerless people. We're just strategic about when we make noise." I sat down. The courtroom was silent for a long moment. Then Judge Huang spoke, and her voice was gentle. "Ms. Martinez, I've heard a lot of testimony today, but that was the most important part. Thank you for your honesty." She turned to Serena. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiff. The will dated March 3rd, 2024 is valid and supersedes all trust provisions. The property transfer is void. The injunction remains in place, and I'm referring the forgery evidence to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. She banged her gavel once. This hearing is adjourned. Everyone, get out of my courtroom and figure out how to be a family again. I made it as far as the courthouse steps before my mother caught up with me. Alondra, wait! Please! I turned. She looked smaller somehow, like the courtroom had taken something out of her. Aurelian stood a few feet behind her, hands in his pockets. What do you want, Mom? I want... Her voice cracked. I want you to understand. We were drowning, losing everything, the house, the cars, our reputation. Your father's business partners are suing us. We're facing bankruptcy. I was desperate. So you stole from your dead father? She flinched. I was going to pay you back. Once we got stable, once the debt was cleared, I was going to make sure you got your share. My share? I laughed, bitter and sharp. It was already mine, Mom. All of it. You weren't taking a loan. You were stealing my inheritance and calling it protection. I was trying to save you from making a mistake. Her voice rose, defensive. You would have kept that house. You would have held on to it out of sentiment until the taxes crushed you. You would have trusted the wrong people, made bad decisions. Like you did? Silence. You don't trust me to handle my own life, I said quietly. You never have. Because if I can handle it, if I can manage the house, the estate, the hard choices, then what was your excuse for controlling everything? Serena's face contorted. That's not fair. None of this is fair, but it's true. Aurelian stepped forward. Alondra, I gave Kimberly my statement. Everything I know about the art plan, the shell company, the timeline. I'm not fighting you on this. I looked at him. Are you fighting her? He glanced at Serena, and something passed between them. Years of marriage, of compromise, of slowly losing themselves in each other's bad decisions. I filed for divorce this morning, he said quietly. I can't do this anymore. Pretend we're good people doing hard things. We're not. We're desperate people who hurt someone we love because it was easier than asking for help. Serena's face went white. Aurelian. I'm sorry, Serena, but I'm done. He turned to me. Kiddo, I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know I should have stood up to her from the start. I know I failed you and your grandfather. His voice broke. But I'm trying to do the right thing now, even if it's too late. I nodded slowly. It's not too late, Dad. It's going to take time. He squeezed my shoulder once, then walked away, leaving Serena and me alone on the courthouse steps. My mother looked at me with something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Defeat. What happens now? She whispered. Now? I took a breath. Now you return the paintings. All 3 of them. You cooperate with the DA's investigation. You pay restitution for the attempted sale costs, and you accept whatever legal consequences come. And if I do that, then I won't push for jail time. I'll ask the DA for probation, community service, restitution. But if you fight this, if you drag this out and try to make me the villain, I will show the world exactly who you are. She stared at me. You've changed. No, Mom. You just never really knew me. I turned to walk to my car. Alondra, she called after me. Do you hate me? I stopped, considered the question honestly. No, I said. I don't hate you. I'm done being small so you can feel big. 2 months later. The legal dust settled faster than I expected. Serena pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery. The DA, impressed by Aurelian's cooperation and my willingness to show leniency, gave her 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and full restitution of legal costs. No jail time. The paintings were returned. All 3 originals, safely recovered from a storage unit Serena had rented under the SM Art Acquisitions name. Isabella quietly moved to Dallas and deleted her social media. She sent me one text. I'm sorry I didn't ask questions. I should have known better. I replied, we all should have. Aurelian moved to Colorado to be near his sister. He calls every Sunday. We're working on it. And the house, Salvador's house, my house now, became mine officially. Deed transferred. Name on the mailbox changed back to Martinez. I'd been living there for a week, slowly unpacking his belongings, deciding what to keep and what to honor by letting go, when I found it. I was in the attic, sorting through boxes of old photographs, when I noticed something odd about the roof beam directly above his desk below. There was a small gap between the beam and the ceiling panel, and something white was wedged inside. I pulled over a stepladder and reached up carefully. An envelope, sealed, aged slightly but protected from dust. The label read, "Only open when the house is truly yours, Salvador." My hands shook as I climbed down and sat on the dusty floor, the envelope in my lap. I opened it slowly. Inside, a letter dated March 5th, 2024, 2 days after the will and video. Mi querida Alondra, if you're reading this, you won. Not against your mother, against the voice that told you that you weren't strong enough. I'm sorry I put you through this. You're probably angry I didn't just stop Serena myself. But here's what I learned in 79 years. You can't protect people from their own battles. You can only arm them for the fight. I could have changed my will years ago. I could have sold the art and eliminated the temptation. I could have done 100 things to prevent this. But then you would never have learned what you're capable of. You've spent your whole life thinking you're weak because you're kind, thinking you're inadequate because you're gentle, thinking you're forgettable because you're quiet. I needed you to see the truth. Kindness is not weakness. It's a choice that requires strength. Gentleness is not inadequacy. It's power under control. Quietness is not invisibility. It's the ability to listen, observe, and strike when it matters. Your mother tried to erase you because she feared you, not your weakness, your strength, the strength to see through her excuses, the strength to hold boundaries, the strength to fight without losing your soul. Now you know who you are, mija. Not the soft girl who needs protecting, the strong woman who protects others. This house is yours. The art is yours. But most importantly, your voice is yours. Use it. Con todo mi amor, Abuelo P.S. Under the kitchen floorboard, the one that creaks by the sink, there's a small metal box. Inside is the deed to the empty lot next door, the old Hernandez property. I bought it in 1998, planning to build you a library someday, a place where you could share stories, help kids who needed quiet spaces, be the person for others that you always were for me. Now you can build it yourself. You'll need it for all the stories you're going to tell. I sat in that attic for a long time, crying into the letter, laughing through tears, feeling Salvador's presence so strongly it was like he was sitting next to me. Then I went down to the kitchen, found the creaky floorboard by the sink, and pried it up with a butter knife. Inside, a metal box containing a property deed for Lot 247, Cedar Ridge Addition, Austin, Texas. A 1/4-acre lot, zoned for community use. Perfect for a library. 6 months later, the Salvador Martinez Community Library opened on what would have been his 81st birthday. It wasn't large, just 2,000 square feet, but it was perfect. Large windows letting in Texas sunshine, shelves built from reclaimed wood from Salvador's workshop, reading nooks for kids, a small art gallery featuring rotating exhibits from local artists, and on the main wall, properly displayed with museum-quality lighting and security, the 3 paintings, the Diego Rivera sketch, Desert Bloom, Evening in Taos. The plaque beneath them read, the Salvador Martinez Collection. These works were collected by Salvador Martinez, 1945 to 2024, not for their monetary value, but for their ability to inspire. He believed art, like people, is most valuable when shared, not hoarded. This library exists because one man trusted his granddaughter to remember what matters, and because one woman found her voice in the quietest of places. On opening day, over 200 people came through. Families from the neighborhood, kids excited about the free reading program, a few reporters. Dr. Orozco flew in from Albuquerque. Even Kimberly Torres showed up with her daughter. Aurelian drove down from Colorado. He stood in front of the paintings for a long time, crying quietly before pulling me into a hug. He'd be so proud, he whispered, not just of the library, of you. I know, I said. I can feel it. I was giving a tour to a group of elementary school kids when a shy girl in the back raised her hand. Yes. I knelt down to her level. Do you own all this? She asked, eyes wide. I smiled. I take care of it. There's a difference. What's the difference? Owning is about keeping things for yourself. Taking care is about sharing them with others. I handed her a book, Where the Wild Things Are, Salvador's favorite to read to me. Want to help me share? Her face lit up and she nodded eagerly. As I watched the kids explore the shelves, pulling down books, settling into reading nooks, filling the space with the exact kind of noise Salvador would have loved, I felt my phone buzz. A text from an unknown number. This is Isabella. I saw the news about the library. It's beautiful. Abuelo would have loved it. I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive me. I thought for a moment, then typed back. I already have. Come visit sometime. We have a whole section on new beginnings. I set my phone down and looked around at the library, at the art on the walls, the books on the shelves, the children discovering stories, the community gathering in a space built on love, not money. On my desk, I'd framed one of Salvador's old photographs, the two of us under the willow tree when I was 7, both of us covered in dirt from planting honeysuckle, laughing like maniacs. Beneath it, I'd added a small plaque with his words. Bones are strongest under pressure. That's when you find out what you're really made of. I ran my fingers over the words, feeling the truth of them settle into my bones. They'd tried to break me with pressure. Instead, they'd discovered what I was made of. And I was done apologizing for being strong.